viewers, welcome to another exciting episode of NDDC 25 interview series. We're honored to have on our set today the President of the Ijaw Youth Council Worldwide, President Jonathan Lokpobiri. Thank you for having us today in your office, sir.
You're welcome to the Ijaw Nation.
All right, sir. You are aware that NDDC is celebrating 25 years anniversary. We would like to have your insights, your review, and probably advice for the way forward for NDDC at 25. But before we get to that, your organization, your activities are predominantly in the region. How will you assess the activities of the NDDC in the region?
First, it's a thing of joy that NDDC has endured. You know, it took the efforts of our leaders to fight for NDDC to come to stay. And reflecting on the journey so far, 25 years after, is a thing of remarkable joy in the hearts of people of the Niger Delta who have witnessed where we used to be and where we are today regarding the activities of NDDC and how it affects the lives of the people of the Niger Delta. First, it's with mixed feelings that the NDDC, after its first board, where you have the Alibis, the Uyemo Gochukus, the Godwin Omenaz, and all of that, practically went under in terms of its conduct of its official business of government and how it affected the lives of the ordinary Niger Delta people. Somehow there was a gap, and 25 years after reflecting on the holistic journey so far, it's a thing of joy that the NDDC has bridged up, gathered a new momentum, especially today, where it now resonates with the people, where its activities now keeps the people hopeful that the region is set on a new trajectory for development and peace. But I can tell you for free that we're not close to where we should have been if things had sustained that progressive step as it took off. But at the time, the commission became purely a political tool for funding political activities and abandoning its core mandate, which was development, regional intervention on key areas of human interest and needs.
Yes, Ambassador, the frequent changes in the leadership of NDDC has not helped matters in terms of its progress and activities. What would you advise to curb this instability in leadership?
First, there's no nation, no organization that makes steady progress when there's incessant interruption in its leadership. Today, there were times in the last couple of years where we had NDDC leaderships in every 6 months, 1 year. And at the time, we almost practically lost a board. And to the level that sole administrators were brought into the management of NDDC as it was a one-man show. And when it became a one-man show, you can take to the bank that there's no way the attention of government will spread. Remember, the NDDC is hosted by 9 states together with different ethnic nationalities cohabiting together in this region. So when one man alone now runs the affairs, run all the shows of NDDC, you can almost imagine the negative impact it had on society generally. So the negative impact of incessant changes in its leadership is unimaginable. I can tell you for free, at the time where the AQUA, the sole administrators were running NDDC, it was never a thing of the region. It was about the few who had the power. And that created a very negative image about the commission, where at the time, NDDC projects became practically unbankable. If you have NDDC projects in your hands, you're practically walking around with copies of papers. Nobody will fund you. Nobody trusts. After all, it has a very bad payment procedure where you must know somebody in the villa. You must know people in the highest of hierarchy before you can get payment for even jobs done, verified. So when it now became a one-man show, it purely became a business affair where the concerns of the people were trampled upon, and very few individuals practically had control and held everyone hostage. And it was a very negative tendency through pressure. I can tell you for free that at the time when the INSIMA board was still existing, I led the movement for a board, a substantive board in NDDC. I remember where youths of the Niger Delta, which I led, shut down NDDC and never allowed them to even open until a board was appointed. And that was how INSIMA was forced out of office. And thereafter, instead of learning from that experience, they brought in people in acting capacity, interim boards where Professor Brabaifa and others came in. And it was a whole different ball game taken to the lowest point of leadership. And at the end of the day, we knew that that was never the way to go. So thank God the last administration, before it finally came to its end of its tenure, found the need, through pressure, the same IYC shut down NDDC that we need a board. We no longer would allow a sole administrator or an interim board. And through that pressure, eventually, the government somehow gave thought to it.
All right, sir.
And eventually a board came before the end of the Buhari's tenure. And one joy is that Tinubu's administration has found a reason to sustain that trajectory.
Thank you so much, sir. As you are aware, NDDC has funding is a significant challenge for us at the NDDC. What are your thoughts on this drawback?
Well, I can tell you for free, the integrity of an organization determines how people can rate it and deal with. NDDC's lack of funding came in two ways. First, by its act, the IOCs operating in our region also has a statutory and mandatory contribution to its funding. And then the normal federal government budgetary allocation and appropriation. Now, when this was done, what was more stable sustaining the activities of NDDC was actually the funding from the IOCs. But somehow, when NDDC became an all-commerce affair where it was taken to the lowest point of leadership, the IOCs withdrew their funding. And of course, that could significantly impact on the amount of resources at the disposal of NDDC. And where you can imagine where one man signs $50 million of NDDC because he holds the key to the vault and money is squandered without any accountability. There's no genuine company like the IOCs have been run, and they will put their money into a hollow, handless pit. So this was why the funding aspect, especially from the IOCs, affected its operations. And then the government itself, because the government never naturally wants the progress of the Niger Delta. So every little thing that negates its mandate and the credibility in the organization. It's as if you are just putting money into an organization that will never make progress. So that also affected the value, the rating, and how much NDDC's budget could improve. At the time, it practically almost became very low. But I'm glad that the current administration sees the reason, because of leadership perhaps, have decided to improve on its funding and increasing its capability to undertake bigger landmark projects. I can tell you this in that we have decried the lack of funding. The federal government, still holds NDDC over $1 trillion in previous budgets that haven't been remitted. NDDC is perhaps one of the organizations that after a successive year, people are still talking about a previous year budget that hasn't been released. It's an aberration. And this is also a call that if you want people to function better, then you must keep your own part of the bargain by prompt release of their resources to them so they can function optimally.
Yes, possible. Youth restiveness is still a challenge in the Niger Delta. And the NDDC has rolled out a number of empowerment programs for the youths. How will you assess his performance in this area?
Well, I can tell you, I'm afraid that it's still below expectation in terms of human capital development. Because the best way to empower people is not the money we give to people. It's not the contributions we give to them in terms of even projects. What really empowers people is the liberation of their mind through education and skills. Especially in a world which is technology-based, AI-driven economies around the world. If we train the right people, it can trigger economic revolution organically, where people will on their own become economic giants by their own dint of hard work. So in terms of what they are doing and all of that, yes, efforts are still here and there, but I can tell you it's still far below expectations. That's regard. Thank you.
All right, sir. As the president of IYC, are there measures put in the ground to ensure that the trainings that some of these youths have received from the NDDC, that you ensure that they follow up and they are able to get something meaningful for themselves out of these trainings?
Well, we are more of an advocacy arm of society. Leadership determines who gets what, how, and when from NDDC. So if it is our desire, we will have as many as possible key, in fact, training programs that are tailored towards people's economic liberation. If you train the people in certain skills and then at the end of the day you give starter packs, funny enough, the vacuum in terms of personal goals by even youth of our region also accounts for this decline in terms of the profitability or the viability of this training opportunity. Because sometimes when you train some people who don't have personal goal and vision, to them it's an opportunity to sell their starter packs and then get small cash, which they will spend in a week. So when trainings are done, part of what we advocate over time is get us involved. When we nominate our people in these trainings, we create our own monitoring platform on what they become out of those trainings and the investment made on them. But to be quite honest, we have never been actually involved. We're not condemning the fact that we have been left behind in such adventures. But if we are involved in those trainings, where we get our own people involved in those trainings, we will hold them to account for whatever they do with those trainings that society and government through NDDC has given to them. But so far for now, we haven't been involved.
Okay, so what kind of collaboration would you like to see between the NDDC, the state governments, and the local authorities?
The NDDC first is emanates from the people, from states and the region. The governors before now have been like extended, do I say ex officios or board members of the NDDC, non-active. But without collaboration, you can almost see a vacuum in terms of the development drive. Development drive needs to be harnessed. So both the states and the NDDC envision out how they want to see Niger Delta in the next couple of years, months, and then decades to come. So sometimes there's a duplication of functions and then projects. So if there's that collaboration, you can almost agree that we can reduce wastage to its barest minimum. Of course, Niger Delta is made of different ethnic nationalities. So collaborating with the ethnic groups so you know their aspirations, their interests, and then the challenges they bear. So projects are tailored to the needs of people so that you don't just work out what you want for a people when sometimes it does not even meet their needs. The essence of government is meeting the needs of its people. And this is the focus that NDDC should take.
Because I've seen how busy you are. So on the final note, what message, as we celebrate the 5 years anniversary, what message do you have for the NDDC, the federal government, and the people of the Niger Delta region?
First, it calls for true reflections, genuine self-introspection into the journey so far. And it also calls for hope and possibilities, especially with the activities of the current board in place. There's no gainsaying that we have made progress and we are continuing to make progress. And it's my encouragement that the NDDC must continue to look beyond personal style and ensure that genuine development to the people is the legacy they must seek. And 25 years in the life of a journey is from an infant to adulthood. So we cannot say that, oh, we are yet to be stable. 25 years in the life of even a fresh nation is enough to stand. Like the South-South Development Commission that is newly created, we pray that it learns from the mistakes of the NDDC at some point and borrow the progress that we're expected to do. So, development in the Niger Delta and other regional development commissions that are created should healthily compete. And the NDDC, of course, is a big brother in the region, so it needs to continue to show that leadership and showing the good example to the South-South Development Commission and others to follow. And on behalf of the Ijaw Youth Council worldwide, I congratulate NDDC, its board, and the Niger Delta people for staying together in peace and harmony to this moment. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.